Sheryl Swoopes she's lighting herself on fire, Steve. They had to pull her off a game because she can't be trusted to call Caitlin Clark games correctly or fairly. They basically pulled her off the game for racism. You're too much of a bigot to call Caitlin Clark games. We're pulling you off the game.
It's unfortunate when racism and negativity overshadow Caitlin Clark's achievements, especially with Sheryl Swoopes not present. The focus should be on celebrating talent and fostering an inclusive environment for all athletes.
Now, she made news last week when she sat up there and was applauding Indiana Fever players, but then forgot to mention Caitlin Clark. She jumped all in my ass because I sat up there and said, hey, how you going to ignore?
Sheryl Swoopes was taken off the Dallas Wings versus Indiana Fever game. Last week, she had a heated exchange with Stephen A. Smith, who criticized her for not mentioning Caitlin Clark in her discussion of the Fever.
Know what she brings to the table? How you just going to ignore accident? Sheryl Swoopes is a champion. A champion. Look at her tweet and what she put up about me. You talk about whomever and whatever you want to on your podcast, correct? So why can't I? Also, did you listen to the entire episode? Nope. I have a personal relationship with these players, and they deserve recognition as well. That ain't the point, Sheryl Swoopes. Yes, I did listen to your entire podcast. You didn't mention Caitlin Clark.
It was surprising that Swoopes mentioned every player on the roster except Clark. Recently, Swoopes also defended Diamond Dashields in a controversial incident.
Personal relationship, what that got to do with your coverage? Ain't nobody said don't mention them. Ain't nobody said don't applaud them. Nobody told you to ignore them. What we're saying is if you're going to give the Indiana Fever all the credit in the world, how you going to mention the Indiana Fever without Caitlin Clark's name even coming up?
Dashields and Caitlin Clark were involved in a controversial play during the Chicago Sky game, and it's tough to determine which incident, Kennedy Carter or Dashields, was worse. Despite the backlash Dashields is facing, which may be warranted, Swoopes defended Dashields after the hard foul. Stay strong, Caitlin. Hate won't prevail, and you have plenty of support.
We're going to face a level of racism from black players.
Diamond Dashield received racist threats after Caitlin Clark flagrant foul.
In a recent video, I highlighted that 80% of the flagrant fouls committed by the Chicago Sky have been against Caitlin Clark.
Jealous. And that, I think, is going to be a monster problem. I hope they get over it for the winning. Guys like to win. Even if they're not the star, well, great, we'll get a championship. Well, everybody jump on Michael Jordan's back. Everybody jump on Larry Bird's back. I don't know if that'll happen with Caitlin Clark.
Swoopes has been notably critical, resulting in changes to the broadcast team.
So for people to come at me and say that I made those comments because I'm a racist, like, first of all, black people can't be racist, but like, that's the farthest thing from my mind, that I speak up for people that look like me.
Sheryl Swoopes has been openly critical of Caitlin Clark and even supported Dashields after her aggressive foul on Clark. This stance has led to Swoopes being removed from her analyst role for the Dallas Wings versus Indiana Fever game.
Every time Caitlin gets fouled, we can't make it seem like she was assaulted. Why like a Stephen A. Smith? It was that important to you to run the Kennedy Carter hip check, right? That was everywhere. But yet, you didn't even discuss what Alyssa Thomas did to Angel Reese.
The Wings' official site now lists Ron Tulin and Nancy Lieberman as the commentators. Swoopes confirmed she wouldn't be part of the broadcast with a sharp reply to a fan. It's a shame. Seeing this play out would have been must-watch TV.
Just for Caitlin, but you asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that player said it.
Okay. Sheryl Swoopes is really going after Caitlin Clark, and it's starting to get old.
That'll go in the record books as Caitlin Clark is the all-time, whatever it is. I don't even know what the number is, but that's the way it'll be. And I don't think it's...
Sheryl Swoopes' criticism of Caitlin Clark is becoming increasingly tiresome.
University basketball coach Sheryl Swoopes, she's under investigation, accused of mistreating players. Them is speaking out this morning, telling us why she wanted to transfer. ABC's Lindsay Davis is here with the details. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, Lara. Sheryl Swoopes was the first woman to ever sign with the WNBA.
Sheryl Swoopes has made some pretty harsh comments about Caitlin Clark, and now people are digging up old controversies. It turns out there was a significant scandal involving her team back in 2008.
This morning, the college coach is not only under fire, but under investigation after reports that the majority of her roster has decided to leave.
Back in 2008, many players criticized Sheryl Swoopes as a coach, with 10 out of 12 speaking out. This has led some to think Swoopes might be projecting her own issues onto Caitlin Clark.
Loyola College basketball coach Sheryl Swoopes is being investigated this morning amid allegations that she mistreated players.
It's questionable that Swoopes is pushing for Angel Reese to win Rookie of the Year over Caitlin Clark, especially given her argument that Clark was drafted to a better team. The Indiana Fever were struggling, so that argument doesn't really hold up.
The environment she created, I was belittled, humiliated, made to feel extremely small.
Watching old videos of Swoopes makes you wonder if race might be influencing her treatment of Clark.
Since 2013, last year, 5 of her players reportedly transferred to different programs. And this year, a reported 10 of the team's 12 players aren't planning on coming back.
It's a tough question, but with everything happening, it's worth asking if Swoopes' criticism of Clark is influenced by racial bias.
Loyola basketball player Kate Sohn says Swoopes caused the players to live in fear, that she routinely threatened that they would lose their scholarships or she would cut them from the team.
Sheryl Swoopes is stirring controversy with her comments, claiming the Indiana Fever could make the playoffs without Clark, but the Chicago Sky couldn't without Reese. Fans are not happy.
Hard to play. It wasn't about working hard and having fun anymore. It was about surviving.
Swoopes is facing backlash on social media, with fans accusing her of hating on Clark and spreading false information about her college stats, like claiming Clark took 40 shots a game and only averaged 19 points. This is clearly inaccurate. It seems like Swoopes might be deliberately trying to undermine Clark. As we dig into this, there's a sense that there's more to the story, especially when looking at older videos and questioning Swoopes' motivations. It's worth noting that Swoopes is known for her strong activist views, which might play a role in this situation.
Time a basketball play happens towards Caitlin, it's because players are envious, they're targeting her, they're jealous, they're haters, they're racist. I keep going on and on. Mm-hmm. Kennedy Carter is one of the best guards in the league.
Sheryl Swoopes herself. She recently spoke on her podcast, Queens of the Court, and didn't mention the rookie when speaking of Indiana's rise in the standing. Here's what Sheryl Swoopes had to say. Look at this quote here. I think the Olympic break really helped Indiana. I'm going to shout out to Lexi Hull. I'm a big Lexi Hull fan. Lexi Hull shot the leather off the ball in their game against Seattle. Kelsey Mitchell is just stroking. She's just shooting the basketball. Aaliyah Boston, almost a triple-double. If Indiana continues to play the way they're playing like this, they too are going to move up in the standing.
I also noticed that the woman in the old video resembled Caitlin Clark, which struck me as odd. Given Swoopes' history of negative comments about Clark, this resemblance adds another layer of intrigue to the situation.
Respectfully, Sheryl Swoopes, you have any idea how that makes you look? You have any idea how that serves to stain any kind of critique of Caitlin Clark? Because that gives fodder to those who believe she's being hated on and ostracized to some degree. Do you realize that, Sheryl Swoopes, you're insane to do that?
Regardless, I'll definitely be watching the game. I'm currently tuned into the Suns and Storm game. Many people still don't realize that Sheryl Swoopes has been removed from the broadcast. There was a mention that she'd be on the mic for the Fever vs. Wings game today at 3:00 p.m. Eastern, but that's not the case now.
Sheryl Swoopes, you're one of the greatest players ever in the history of basketball. See, you won a championship in college at Texas Tech. You won 3 Olympic gold medals. You won 4 WNBA championships. You know basketball. You know basketball better than me. You know basketball than any of the pundits. You know basketball better than most of the men that play basketball. There is no way in hell you just accidentally left Caitlin Clark's name.
During a recent broadcast, Sheryl Swoopes went silent for 50 seconds while her co-host talked about Caitlin Clark being named Player of the Week. It's a pretty petty move.
I just love that she tries to stay grounded, and she says she doesn't, what did she say? She doesn't have a social, she doesn't look at her social, and I get it. I don't either. And I think it's so important to continue to do what she's doing, and no matter what other people do, then if people are negative, it's because they can't do what you do.
Swoopes' behavior is baffling. It seems like she's consumed with envy, and it's affecting her reputation. It's puzzling why she's so hostile towards Caitlin Clark. Swoopes is damaging her own legacy with this envy-driven negativity.
Was talking about your league. Nobody cared about the WNBA until that girl, Caitlin Clark, I don't care what color she is. She's ridiculous. She's nasty. And now people are watching and you guys are talking shit about her. Like, what are you guys doing? They're sabotaging the whole thing. She should leave. She should have got those other contracts. Where does she have a contract to go somewhere else?
Big Three.
She should have gone to the Big Three. To hell with the WNBA. They're nothing. They're nobody. Nobody's watching.
They lost $50 million. The WNBA lost $50 million. The only reason they make it is because the NBA kind of gives money to them to help them out. It's a lost cause every.
Sheryl Swoopes needs to mature. Her frustration seems to stem from feeling she should have been the league star, but Caitlin Clark has come in and completely changed that narrative.
Saying that Indiana is in the playoffs right now without Caitlin Clark, by saying that like Katie Lou Samuelson's really more integral in terms of her two-way ability than Caitlin, and also saying that, and I don't besmirch her for this because lots of people are making arguments for whether they think that it is Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark that should be Rookie of the Year. I've said that I think it's Caitlin, but that I could understand someone making an argument for the other. It's not hate to make an argument for Angel Reese, so I don't take any issue with that part, but the other part, it just feels like there is something there, and I'm not really sure what is not connecting with Sheryl.
No matter what stage you're on, if you're at the highest stage, there's always going to be people that are critiquing you. There's always going to be people that are complimenting you, and I think that just speaks to like how I was raised too. Like, you know, I've never been one to like weigh the opinions of the haters too much, or, you know, I was told like, you know, at the level you feel all the praise, that's going to be the same level you feel all the hate. So like, I feel like
Everyone sees the revenue, attendance, and ratings. Caitlin Clark is breaking records and getting the recognition that others believe should have been theirs.
Soliloquy that you dropped about the Indiana Fever. Stop it. You know that. Stop it. More. If you had talked about it more, they would have played more games. Like I had the power to go up to ESPN and say, you know, directors and producers and cameramans and everybody else flocked to the WNBA at the time when it wasn't nearly as popular as it was today.
I'm still processing this, but here's a quick update. The Fever versus Wings game is seeing some changes. Swoopes is out as an analyst, and they found a replacement. It's a shame to see this happen, especially considering how she brought it on herself. It's surprising to see someone who learned from Sheryl Swoopes and others act this way. It's disappointing to see Swoopes skip calling Caitlin Clark's game.
See, the women of the W are hating on Caitlin and they hate her. And we've covered that on this show plenty. What I appreciate is that with time and with the benefit of hindsight on our side, I am noticing much more calm in terms of people. This is her opinion. This is not the opinion of everyone in the W. I think there have been enough cases, W, over the last few months, supporting Caitlin, showing their support. I think there's been enough of that now that people think that's seemingly inflammatory and give it and lay it at the feet of that person, as opposed to making an entire diatribe on everyone in the W and how all of these black women hate.
It seems like Sheryl Swoopes has really put herself in a tough spot. While it's likely she's not out of a job entirely, the timing of these changes does raise some eyebrows. The rotation of broadcast crews might be standard, but it feels like a convenient move given the situation. If the WNBA wants to attract viewers and create excitement, putting Swoopes on the broadcast might have stirred things up, especially with her track record. I understand the broadcaster's hesitation. There's a risk of unpredictable comments or silence on Caitlin Clark. It's a tricky situation, but it's also a reminder of how the league and media navigate these controversies. As for Ellie Dunan's defense of Swoopes, it's important to remember that tolerance for racist or hateful comments should always be zero. Every player and commentator needs to be held accountable, and it's crucial to address issues with respect and integrity. It's a complex situation, and it seems like the drama around Swoopes and Clark is far from over. What do you think about how the WNBA should handle this?